Turn the volume knob up a click and settle in. Welcome back to the table, everyone. This is episode 5 of Track and Vector, Star Wars Unlimited podcast, where we cut through the online algorithm noise and figure out real tabletop strategy. I'm talking grassroots community culture and the material joy of the hobby. As always, I'm your host, Taco Pete. I'm glad to have you here with me today. Today's fight plan is titled Gem Mint 10 or Shuffle Them In, because let's be completely honest with ourselves. We are officially past the pre-release bubble, right? The Ashes of Empire main sets hitting store shelves, and the entire community is experiencing a massive, and I mean massive, dopamine boost of excitement. On one side of the room, we've got players aggressively mass shuffling fresh cards in the tournament decks, trying to make that hot meta set. And on the other side, well, we got people sealing everything in plastic slabs and praying to the Graydon gods. Today, what we're going to do is we're just going to dive headfirst into the 3 distinct camps of modern card culture, particularly as it relates to SWU, right? Talk about the pure players, the pure asset graders, and, well, those of us who happily choose to balance right on the knife's edge in the middle. But man, before we tear into that debate, I got to talk about the absolute gold star pre-release energy I experienced last weekend, right? I packed my gear and headed out to Savannah Lion Games, and let me tell you, if I scored local card shops based purely on positive energy, good community vibes, and a welcoming atmosphere, I'm giving this crowd an absolute A+. Right? The second I walked in, sat down, they made me feel right at home. It's an incredible, it's a healthy store scene, right? It's a good local scene. They run their official Star Wars Unlimited event every Tuesday night at 6. Be sure if you're anywhere near Savannah or Pooler, stop by and check them out. I can't recommend this crew enough. And that goes for players of all skill levels, right? If you're a beginner just stepping into the cockpit, the folks down there happily step up and show you the ropes and give you some pointers, and get you dialed in. And, well, if you're a seasoned pilot looking for a real tactical challenge, they got a fantastic core of sharp players who put down some incredibly fun, creative homebrew decks. And I want to give them a massive shout out. Savannah Lion Games crew, thank you. Thank you for hosting such a stellar launch weekend. And speaking of incredible people in this community, that's going to take us right into our card art of the week. Right, we don't just chase $300 variant cards on this show. Today I want to shine a bright spotlight on a standard, beautifully accessible common pool that completely captures the artistic standard of the Ashes set. And the card I'm talking about today is Honorable Night Owl by Kyle Petchock. If you've opened even a handful of packs this week, right, you've probably got a couple of copies of this card sitting on your desk. It's this low cost, high utility support unit, and the illustration by Kyle Petchock's an absolute masterpiece of what, let's just call it classic comic book style composition. It hits all the buttons, right? Now, meeting Kyle at the Galactic Convention Artist Alley last year was a major highlight for me. This guy's incredibly gracious. He signed my DJ and tech cards from the Shadows of the Galaxy set. These are now prized pieces in my binder, right? This is some serious, nice looking pieces of cardboard, right? Kyle doesn't disappoint, right? He knocks it completely out the park again with the Night Owl art. And Petchock gives us this striking, right? It's like this heroic view of Mandalorian Bo-Katan loyalists, right? There's this crisp, clean line work on that iconic blue and silver armor. And it's incredibly sharp. And the way the character's framed against that muted background, you get that contrast popping. It's just got a real old school cinematic weight to it. It's exciting to look at. It felt good pulling my first pull out of a pack, right? It was just one of those cards you get excited to see. That's always a win for me. And it proves you don't need to hunt down some ultra rare variant to appreciate just the physical material craftsmanship of this game, right? It's a gorgeous game piece, looks super stunning lying flat on the playmat, just as well as tucked inside your collector's binder. Kyle, if you're listening, I just want to say, stellar work, man. And I absolutely hope to see you again at the 2026 Galactic Convention next week. So we're going to have a good time out there. The exact duality, right? Appreciating a card as both a beautiful piece of art and a lethal tool on the battlefield. Well, this is exactly what we're going to be breaking down in our next segment. We're going to look at the great cultural divide, right? Are you chasing the slab? Or are you scuffing the edges? Which camp are you falling into? We'll dive into this play versus collect matrix next. And then we'll move into lore to core mechanics, and we're going to be tracking the brilliant storytelling behind the tiny scout Ewok, or Wicket, right? We all know and love Wicket from Return of the Jedi. We'll talk about why this card text perfectly mirrors his cinematic history. And then finally, we'll round up with the efficiency engine, map out some low resource velocity play format that I think you'll want to dial into your deck. And then as always, we'll close out with the old analog archive. So if you haven't done so already, pull up a chair, grab those card sleeves, let's roll out the mats and see what we can make happen. All right, let's open up the archive and look at the cultural divide that currently runs straight down the middle of our hobby community. If you walk into any card shop or you're browsing an online forum during a major set drop like Ashes of the Empire, you're going to run into what I like to think of as the three camps of card culture, right? Right now, those groups, well, they're practically speaking completely different languages. So depending on what group you gravitate to at your next convention, qualifier, store event, well, it'll dictate the language you need to know. So let's just tap into that, right? Camp number one's the pure spikes. These are the players who view cardboard strictly as physical ammunition for the battlefield, right? They are diving right into what will this card do for me? To them, this card's a game piece. That's it, period. I mean, I'm not saying they don't appreciate the art. They open a fresh pack, they check the art, they get into it, but really they're diving into those stat lines, and you can see the gears in the brain are immediately turning as they begin to mass shuffle 50 cards together in this sweet new deck that they're probably going to dominate me with. They don't really seem to care if that card's worth $2 or $200 unless they're going to flip it immediately to buy another booster box to hopefully make a new combination for that meta set they're working on, right? If it wins games, it goes on the playmat. Cards get scuffed, sleeves get dirty, and their ultimate joy is, right, this competitive friction of the match. And if you talk to this crew about grading a card, they're going to look at you like you just suggested putting a plastic cover on a sports car. It's like you are not speaking the same language. Then you move over to the other side of the room, the side that's hanging around the glass counter, the side that's hanging around the shelves. Right, you're going to hit camp number two, and these are your slab hunters, right? This group here, they are pure asset collectors. Now, to this crowd, table game may not even exist. I meet a lot of slab hunters who just don't play. They are collecting sheerly for the pure joy of hunting that Gem Mint 10. The joy is just not in the play, it's in the preservation. And there's nothing wrong with that either, right? They open a pack with literal microfiber gloves. I'm kidding, right? But really though, if you need gloves, I got a pair you can borrow. And I'm just saying, you'll notice that they look at cards in a totally different manner than Camp 1. They're instantly going to slide hits into rigid plastic protectors, and they're getting ready to ship these things off to a grading company, right? Or, in today's card market, they're going to hold until these grading prices come down from that stratosphere level they're currently sitting at. Come on, people. Let's bring it down to a realistic level, right? So their ultimate goal, right, this camp, are slab hunters. It's hunting that elusive, pristine, perfect Gem Mint 10 label. And, I acknowledge it. There's a thrill in pulling that card. So to them, trapping that artwork inside a permanent sealed plastic tomb, this is the ultimate expression of respecting the hobby. But then you got camp number 3, right? And this happens to be the camp where I live, and I suspect a huge portion of our track and vector network lives here with me, right? We're all in this together. We are the battle-ready collectors, right? We're the ones caught right on the knife's edge, right in the middle of the camps. I absolutely love the thrill of a master set hunt, right? Ripping open a fresh booster pack, pulling that binder out, organizing the sets, admiring the texture of those solid premium foil pulls, and, you know, tracking down even every single common variant out there. It's fun. It feels good. Right? The collecting aspect feeds my creative soul. Heck, I'll even shell out for the occasional carbonite pack in hope of scoring some sweet art or, you know, a man can dream, maybe even a serialized card. Now, for y'all out there wondering after last week's episode, just to let you know, I've yet to pull the prestige Whistling Birds, but I'm still on the hunt. I look at work, you know, by artists like Petchock, and I see what they put into a card. Like, let's take the Stranger No Survivors, for instance, the promo card variant, right? I do. I see that. I want to preserve it. I want to admire it. You know, it's nice to pull those cards out, check them out, share them with friends, take a look. There's certainly something to that. I do want to appreciate it as a beautiful physical piece of pop art. And, you know, I probably own a swoosh slab or 2 or maybe even 3. But here's the catch. I also want to play the game, right? I want to sit across from somebody at that table and I just want to go head to head with a stack of cardboard. And I don't want my rarest cards trapped behind a wall of permanent plastic where they can never touch a playmat, right? There's this, it's like this specific unmatched thrill pulling this gorgeous, high-value, legendary card, slide it into a premium sleeve, and putting it face down on the table in front of 3 other pilots here in a high-stakes match, right? There's something cool about it. When I got those Petchock cards signed at the 2025 convention, I put them in sleeves and I played them, right? I've got them in the binder now. Before the convention, it was fun pulling those out and dropping those signed cards up on that table, right? Playing that actual collection, right? It's scuffing the edges just a tiny bit, right? Do some tabletop combat. It gives the physical game state some real weight. And, you know, for me, it connects the joy of the hunt directly to the joy of the community table. And as we know on Track and Vector, that's what it's all about. So you don't have to choose a side, folks. You don't have to let the internet tell you you're playing the hobby wrong if you don't slab everything, or if you don't beat your cards to pieces, right? You're just not doing it right. You can love the artwork, you can chase the rare master set binder, and you can still sit across from a new player, a place like Savannah Lion Games on a Tuesday night, and roll out a deck packed with the cards that you absolutely love. So just balance the ledger, appreciate the craft, and enjoy the physical reality of the cardboard we all know and love. But speaking of cards, a beautifully balanced, incredible artistic presentation with this perfect, literal tabletop mechanics, right? Let's take a step away from Collector's Row and check out a masterclass in game design. Let's move on into Lord of Core Mechanics and talk about a tiny Ewok who perfectly explains how narrative and the SWU universe can quickly become gameplay. Let's steer our radar straight into Lord of Core Mechanics, right? This is the segment of the show where we look at brilliant narrative architecture of this game, right? We'll talk about how the design team takes decades of Star Wars cinematic history and translates it directly into mechanical rules on a piece of cardboard. So when you look at a massive set drop like Ashes of the Empire, it's easy to focus entirely on the heavy hitters, right? You got some big starfighters in there. We got the armored Mandalorians that when you're pulling supports or when you've got cards being pulled off the table, those Mandos are dropping like candy, just throwing them down. And then you've also got some pretty awesome high damage events to deal with. But some of the most masterful game design happens on the absolute lowest rung of the resource ladder in this Ashes of the Empire set. So today, we're going to talk about a tiny, low-cost, common unit that's an absolute masterclass in storytelling. Talking about Wicket Yub-Nub. And we've got a version by artist Sandra Levinska, or we got a weekly play promo by Alexa Styshuk. So both of these are awesome looking cards and worth adding to your deck. Now, if you check the stat line on Wicket, right, he's this cheap, low resource unit. You can drop him out round one if you like. He hits the board early, got decent combat stats for his size, but it's got this very specific absolute restriction printed right on the card text, right? That says Wicket cannot attack bases. Think about that restriction from a pure gameplay perspective, right? So in a standard match, the ultimate goal is to smash your opponent's base total down to a 0. So when a player opens a pack and sees a unit that literally cannot advance that victory condition directly, the first instinct might be to toss it in the bulk box. But we've seen this before in SWU, right? So you're not going to think, why waste a slot on a unit that can't swing at a base? Because we know the game designers have got something planned for this unit. And let's take a look with Wicket, right? How beautifully that mirrors the literal lore of Return of the Jedi. Remember this, right? When the Rebel Strike Team lands on the forest moon of Endor, they're up against the ultimate tall threat, right? The Imperial Shield Generator base. It's heavily protected by troopers, by walkers. And when Leia meets Wicket, right, he doesn't like pull out this tiny spear, march up to the front door of the bunker and single-handedly blow it off its foundation, right? There is this massive forest battle that takes place. And what we see with the Ewoks, with Wicket, the scout, and the other Ewok troopers, is they are moving from the forest. They are making hits on other players. They're taking out the AT-ATs. They're taking out the troopers. They are moving behind the scenes so that Leia and Han can do what needs to be done, right? They operate entirely in the shadows of the forest arena. So his role in the film is like, it's to act as this brilliant disruptor and companion. Wicket's out there setting the traps. He's creating diversions. You guys remember the log roll, right? Tripping up scout troopers, drawing the ropes across the trees, catching the speeder bike riders. I mean, it was good stuff. And he creates the critical tactical openings, right, that allow Han, Leia, and the main rebel force to get inside and actually blow the base to pieces. Like that's where he's going. And that's exactly how you pilot Wicket on the playmat. You don't slide him across the table to chip it over the base. You can't. But you can use him to control the ground arena, right? Use his cheap deployment to intercept early enemy runners. Clear out those annoying sentinels, and Ashes has got some annoying sentinels in it, right? You can create these highly efficient combat trades. It'll completely disrupt your opponent's early game curve, right? You are knocking at their door. And Wicket's the ultimate low-cost wingman. By leaving him in the arena to clean up the board state, you're paving a totally clear runway for the massive high-end finishers to fly in and finish the job. For me, it's a flawless translation of cinematic character history into the game mechanics of SWU. The design team didn't just give Wicket this random ability. They built his exact movie personality right into the rules of how he interacts with the table. And, understanding how to weaponize these low-cost, high-utility lore pieces is exactly what separates the casual player from the veteran pilot, especially with this new set, Ashes. Because if you know how to pair these cheap units with the explosive new mechanics hitting the table this week, you're going to be able to build this high-velocity engine that wins matches before your opponent even realizes what hit them. So, up next, we're going to steer straight into the efficiency engine. We're just moving through it this week. We're going to break down the low-cost velocity meta and the absolute math of stacking these advantage tokens up. So, stay tuned for what's coming next. Now that we've mapped out the narrative design of Wicket, we're just going to pivot directly into the efficiency engine, right? This is where we run the numbers and look at the actual playmat velocity of the new Ashes of Empire set, right? If you're looking at tournament tables this week, a massive trend's already starting to crystallize. Players are moving completely away from the slow, clunky, high resource setups, and they're just diving head first into this low cost barrage. And Ashes of the Empire, we've been handed an unprecedented number of cheap, low cost units, right? On paper, these cards, they look unassuming, but when you stack them with the set's brand new advantage mechanic and these passive support cards, you're going to realize that math changes completely. So the strategy is all about this rapid accumulation and temporary power spikes, right? Instead of saving up your resources to drop out that massive 6-cost unit on turn 5, we're just going to flood that zone early with high efficiency 2 and 3-cost units, tap some advantage tokens on top, throw in some supports, and clear the deal. So why is this punishing? Well, remember last episode how advantage tokens operate. Unlike permanent upgrades that require a heavy card and resource investment, these advantage tokens, well, they're highly efficient, transient power buffs. Many of these low-cost Ashes units either enter the battlefield carrying advantage, or they're fueled by cheap early game support cards that are just sitting in the back row. Pass tokens out every time that combat phase initiates, right? You're essentially taking a tiny cheap unit and instantly amping it up to trade up into a much larger, more expensive enemy defender. So mathematically, right, you're winning the resource trade every single time. I mean, maybe not every time. Sometimes they'll slip by you, but let's say most of the time. And if your opponent drops a heavy 5-cost unit and you're able to take a 2-cost common unit, buff it with some passive advantage token from a support card and crash into it to clear the threat, I mean, you have just executed this major tempo swing to the game. Kept your footprint wide, spent almost 0 physical cards from your hand, and, well, you're forcing your opponent to play defensively from behind. So whatever you do, don't underestimate the power of a low curve in this set. Like, dig through the collection, pull out those highly efficiency, low-cost common, uncommon units, pair them with persistent token-generating support cards, and test the velocity limits of your build. You're going to be absolutely amazed at how fast you can choke out a slow, top-heavy deck. And, you know, speaking of rolling out these low-cost units and tracking your advantage tokens on a physical surface that actually does the artwork justice, well, let's step away from the math ledger, look at the visual layouts hitting the table this weekend, and pop open the analog archive. To close out the flight plan today, let's step away from the deck math and open up the analog archive. Right, this is the part of the show where we appreciate the physical craftsmanship, design, and clean presentation of tabletop hobby. So if you're going to be representing your local shop or heading out to a major table this month, stopping into the Galactic Convention, right, you need fresh canvas to roll out. And today we are turning the spotlight on the brand new official Ashes of Empire Playmats. And I want to focus in on these convention exclusives because they look good, right? Game Genic has absolutely outdone themselves with printing on these. These mats just look hot, right? And seeing Cy Snoodles and Max Rebo, that particular match just made my day. It's been a hoot going back and forth and reliving those Cantina Scene days. That's certainly a throwback to good times for sure, right? And we got the new Armorer mat that looks really good, the Cassian mat. That's an awesome looking mat, right? And it handles the playmat quality really well. Your resources are going to stay below. Your space and ground campaigns are going to be waged to the left and right of Cassian. And then Cassian's going to frame the board where your leaders are going to hit. So well done. And of course, you all know, right, I am a Rebels fan. So we've got the Ahsoka mat coming out. That looks to be really good too. And then in the background of that sneak peek Game Genic did, we got what looks to be the Death Star hitting Scarif. I'm sure you guys will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the scene that I'm connecting it to. And that's a good looking mat as well. Now that I say that, right, that could be Jenna getting hit I don't know. I'll figure that out once I see that mat in its entirety, but it's an incredible, unbelievable rollout. GameGenic, you did right by me this round. On top of that, they also just announced this new line of shiny swoo mats, and I got to see them in person before I give you a judgment on them, but they look like they could be cool to lay out on the table. So I know we all appreciate setting the stage with a slick new mat on the table, and well, I mean, these mats are just another great way to show off your love of the art and of course celebrate this community. So speaking of rolling out playmats, folks, the absolute peak of the year is officially right around the corner. The 2026 Galactic Convention opens next week. The hype's completely real. I'm already packing up my deck pods. I'm organizing my trade binder. I'm prepping my gear. And now, because of how massive this event is, I'm still deciding how we're going to handle the broadcast. So I may take the week off to fully immerse myself in the tournament halls, or I may record a quick raw from the convention floor format, like a mini episode, to give you guys the immediate vibes, some of the updates from the floor, and some of the reveals as they happen. So let me know in the comments what you'd prefer. I'll try to make that happen. Either way, my personal travel plan's locked in. We're going to be showing up to town on Thursday for the early check-in. And if you're heading out, I suggest you do the early check-in as well, because remember, they announced they're going to be handing out some special early bird promo cards for those of us doing the early check-in system. And you definitely don't want to miss out on those exclusive collectibles. I guess we're just leaning into a camp right there with that statement. So once the doors officially swing open, I'll be right there in on the action. I'll be sitting across the table from y'all all weekend long, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So whether you want to play a competitive premiere match, I'm hoping to hit up some Twin Suns, test out some new low-cost Ashes casual decks, or just take a breather from the table and talk some shop, right? I'll be there, and pull up a chair, bring your favorite leaders, and let's play some games, because that's exactly what this community is all about. So, and that, fellow pilots, brings us to the final coordinates for episode 5, Gem Mint 10 or Shuffle 'em in. I want to give a massive thanks again to the crew at Savannah Lion Games for the incredible pre-release hospitality. Congratulations to everybody out there cracking open their boxes this week. And, well, you know, if today's flight plan helped you visualize the new Ashes set, right? Do your part to help our grassroots network grow. Share a link in your local Discord, tell a buddy at your stores Tuesday weekly, and keep your collection safe, keep your playmats clean, and, well, keep your eyes locked on the track and vector. I'm Taco Pete, signing off, and I'll see you at the upcoming Galactic Convention. All right.